Keep going.
Okay.
I'm the artist taxi driver. This, my friends, is Matt Wrack. Matt Wrack is the General Secretary of the Fire Brigade Union. That means that he's the number one. He's in charge of the Fire Brigade Union. And right now, this government is there's a full-on assault. Matt, job cuts, stations closed. What the hell's going on?
Well, what's going on is they are slashing funding to our fire services all over the country. So just yesterday we heard an announcement, for example, that in the northeast, Tyne and Wear are planning huge closures, cuts, axing fire engines, job losses. Same story just a week or so ago in Derbyshire. It's happening all over the country.
I mean, in London, we're in London, I'm a Londoner, 500 fire jobs to go,
Yeah.
10 fire stations.
Yeah, it's the same story up and down the country. London, biggest fire brigade in England, and so the cuts are bigger. But you've got it in South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, Manchester, Merseyside, and what it means is people's local fire stations are threatened with closure, or the fire engine gets cut. There are fewer firefighters there. And what that means is when people dial 999, it will take longer for firefighters and fire engines to get to the fire or whatever other emergency it is.
But how's this allowed to happen?
Well, the funding for the fire service comes from two sources. One is the local council taxpayers, and two is central government funding. And what's happening is the council tax is being frozen or kept very low. But the key to it is central government funding is being slashed year on year. David Cameron, for example, the night before the general election, went to a fire station in Carlisle, promised to, as he put it, put more resources into the front line. Well, you don't get much more front line than this, and our service is being slashed along with other public services across the board.
Some people are calling it a controlled demolition.
Well, it is. It's a demolition of public services. You know, you can see it in health, in education, in local authority services, and us in the fire and rescue service.
And there was a thing the other day that I read that they could be privatising all 46 fire services.
Well, I think we've put them on the back foot on that a little bit. We exposed that with the help of some MPs in Parliament a few months ago. And the government has come out, the ministers, both Brandon Lewis and Eric Pickles, have made very clear statements that they don't intend to do that. Now, obviously, we'll see what happens, but the service...
You wouldn't trust those guys, though, would you?
No, not trusting them one inch. The service, there are areas of the fire service that have been privatised. So the biggest scandal was in London and Lincolnshire, where all the fire engines were privatised.
They were sold for £2.
Ended up being sold for £2. It was an absolute disgrace. In Cleveland, currently, in the northeast, we've got a fire chief who's trying to mutualise, turn the fire service into a supposedly employee-run service. Now, the employees don't want anything to do with it, and in our view, that is a first step towards privatising Cleveland Fire Brigade, and if they can do it there, they will do it everywhere else. So that's a big part of our campaign as well.
They've privatised your training through Babcock's, haven't they?
That's in London and elsewhere. There are private providers coming in and taking over different bits of the fire service. That could be the training, that could be the fire engines. Yeah, it's creeping privatisation.
And we've had, is it Southwark that's being rebuilt with a PFI?
Yes, that's happening here in the London Fire Brigade. I mean, we've got PFI fire stations all over the country.
But that's just. I mean, how do we fight this? How do we stop this?
I think what we'd say is we want. I mean, firefighters are obviously up in arms about what's happened to their fire services, and we've had some fantastic local campaigns. I think we want local people to get behind their firefighters, to make clear to local politicians they don't want to see their fire service cut, they don't want to see their fire service privatised, and they actually want to see their firefighters being well rewarded for doing the job that they do.
What do you think about these? A lot of people have noticed the disgraceful attacks by the media on firefighters when they were talking about like they couldn't run up and down the stairs, they get too old. On nurses, they've spent 2 years attacking nurses. And on the teachers, when they went on strike, they got them all standing outside a pub at 5:30.
Yeah, and I think there's a very clear agenda. If you take the health service, I think it is about... the health service is a much-loved institution in Britain, and it's about trying to demonise people working in the health service, and it's about saying the health service is failing and wouldn't it actually be better if we did privatise it. And the same is going on with teachers. Teachers do a fantastic job in very difficult circumstances, and again they are attacked and vilified if they stand up for themselves. And again, that's about saying wouldn't it be better if we ran public services in a different way.
But I mean, one of the headlines I saw was like something like on the BBC, 20% of the firefighters are unfit.
Well, there's a big debate about fitness in the fire service, and obviously it is a very physically demanding job. We support having good fitness standards. We also support that the employer's got to provide the decent resources, gyms, training, medical advice, all of those issues which aren't in place everywhere. Actually, what's going on currently is the government is trying to make firefighters work longer to 60 and as a minimum and beyond. We think the evidence shows that firefighters can't do the job that they're required to do at that sort of age. It's absolutely ludicrous, and I think most of the public get that.
But I mean, I was just speaking with Ricky Tomlinson in there, and what we were saying, it's an all-out attack. It's a movement of public money into private pockets. Through privatisation, the workers are the ones that are going to suffer the most. Going to lose their contracts, going to lose their pensions. They're going to end up on 0 hour working whenever they can. How can we fight this? I mean, surely everyone should be together.
Yeah, I think you make an interesting point about the what's going on. If you think about 2008, we had the banking crisis that spread to the wider economy. We've been in crisis ever since with growing unemployment. The taxpayer bailed out the banks, and now with the crisis that results from that, the taxpayer, ordinary people, have been asked to pay again. So we've been asked to pay twice over, first of all by helping out the banks, and then by seeing our services cut to pieces. So yeah, we need to build as much unity. We need to support unions or local campaigns, community groups who are fighting to defend their services wherever they are, whatever sector they're in, and stand together against what's going on.
If the government has its way, there's going to be nothing left of unions, because everything will go into the private sector.
Well, I think there are unions in the private sector as well, but yeah, we've got to make clear that they didn't stand for election saying they were going to privatise the fire service. They said quite the opposite about the health service. We've got to expose it, that it's happening. Unfortunately, across the spectrum, there are too many people in the Labour Party and the Lib Dems who also support the same agenda, and we've got to expose that. I think people want good quality public services in public hands under democratic control.
Are people asleep in the country?
No, I think there's a fear of what can be done. You know, that you get such an onslaught from politicians, from the media, that there's no alternative, and actually it takes people standing up, getting organised and fighting back, actually, that it shows you can change things.
So we're outside the Trade Union Congress House. Why haven't the unions called a general strike?
Well, I think there is an ongoing debate. There's, I've just been at the TUC General Council. There's a whole range of views on that. It's not easy, and no one's saying it's easy. I think we need to build that unity step by step. We've got to rebuild in our workplaces so that people, there's a whole generations of people who've never been in a union, don't know what a union is. So it's about getting them involved. We try that all the time in our union, engaging the younger members to get involved in the union. So we need to build that in the workplaces, and yet then we need to discuss how unions work together, whether that's coordinated industrial action, wider campaigning, or, as you say, the question that's been debated at the TUC about the general strike.
Because you're going to end up, once they come in, you're going to have nothing. You will have no rights. You say there's unions in the private sector, but we've got people working, like, you go and sit down and wait, and then you can come and work. That's outrageous. New Labour, this Labour Party, right? They're endorsing Ian Duncan Smith's thing the other day, saying that we're going to be harder on welfare. You got with Rachel Reeves. You got Tristram Hunt endorsing bloody what the hell is going on with these people? You got Chukri Munna and Tessa Jowell writing to the government asking for squatters to be criminalised who are squatting commercial buildings.
Yeah, and I think people want to see something very different. And it's interesting, isn't it? When Miliband made just one comment about the energy companies, he got a huge boost. Actually, people know they're being ripped off by privatised corporations, whether it's energy, on the railways. And actually, if politicians in the Labour Party or opposing the government actually stood up and exposed that, they would get huge support.
But we've got a crisis in this country, and I don't just see it as a financial one. I see it as a community one. I see, like, we've got people being attacked with disabilities. We've got people being forced on workfare schemes with cancer. We've got ATOS. We've got all out attack on every single public sector, and it doesn't seem like anyone's doing anything to fight back. The voices need to be louder, or someone needs to, to move the people forward.
Yeah, no, well, I think people are fighting back. There are people fighting back. We've seen students getting organised to resist attacks on education and tuition fees and so on. We've seen workers trying to organise to resist attacks on their pay and their pensions. And we see all across the country, local community groups trying to defend, whether it's their local library or their hospital. We saw, just up the road, a magnificent march in Lewisham against the closure of Lewisham Hospital. So it shows that people can get organised. I think what's happening is not linked up enough.
I think every single person that I talk to, if they wanted me to say something, that they want you to go in there and tell them, we need a general strike. We need all public sector workers, teachers, firefighters, the Royal Mail, even though they've privatised it. We need everyone to stand up and say, you can't take our jobs. Do you know what I mean? There's people that are scared psychologically. The postman I talked, psychologically, people are scared about their future, about their job.
Yeah, I think that's clearly what's going on in workplaces today. You've got mass unemployment, and they use mass unemployment to terrify people. You better toe the line when you're in work, or else you'll be out there on the scrap heap with those people. So yeah, we need to be united across the board. People need to be strong, need to be well organised, need to stand up for themselves. And yeah, I think that needs a big discussion about what sort of society we want to live in, actually, and also what we're going to do to fight back.
But we've got like, just with the firefighters, we've got soldiers that some people said to me were treacherous because they're training to be firefighters right now.
Well, I think I mean, actually, in my own job, lots of our members were previously in the armed forces. People in the armed forces do what they're told to do. They have to do that within the terms of their responsibilities. So we expect that. I think what's more worrying is there are people being recruited just through private agencies to come, for example, break our strike. That's
like G4S, Serco.
There's various organisations doing it. That's more worrying to our members than, for example, soldiers doing it.
So you're going to go in there and carry that message that we need a general strike?
Well, we've just finished today, but yeah, we will be meeting again soon, and we'll take that message to them.
I'm the artist taxi driver. This, my friends, is Matt Wrack from the Fire Brigade Union.